Cool. All right, how's everyone doing today? Happy Friday. So as Dimitri had said, my name's Kevin, and it's great to be with you guys. So very quickly, because I know we're on a limited time frame, but just a couple people shout out some of the majors that you guys are. Accounting? God bless you. This was my most difficult class in college. Special place in heaven for accountants, nurses, and teachers.
Business administration.
Business admin?
I guess accounting.
Okay, you guess accounting? That's not a good for accountant. Cool.
Business administration.
Admin as well? Admin?
Accounting.
Accounting? Engineering? Business? Cool. How about someone on this side? Business?
Business or history.
Nice.
Okay.
Accounting? Admin? Finance? Cool. Got a lot of accountants. Admin? Admin? Okay, awesome. So I'm going to try to cram a lot in a little bit of time, and I am a super informal guy, so if you guys have questions, no subject taboo, nothing off limits, by all means just shout it out, ask away. But I'm going to try to cover a little bit of my background and then talk to you about what I'm doing now, and really, hopefully, maybe that'll spur some questions and whatnot. But I also want to introduce Katie Mahoney, who is with me as well. Katie is our Vice President of Marketing, so it doesn't sound like there's any marketing students here, but if anyone's interested in marketing or anyone interested in communications from the business side, by all means, ask Katie. Where'd you go to school and when did you graduate?
I went to John Carroll University, which is outside Cleveland, Ohio, and I graduated in 2008 with a degree in communications.
Awesome. So I work for the York County Economic Alliance, so it is awesome to be with you. And again, I'll kind of get into a little bit more detail in a bit of what that is. But the clicker. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay, there we go. So that was me 15 years ago. I'm actually about to celebrate my 15th year reunion, which is nuts. I went to York College. I graduated in 2002, and I graduated with a public relations major. I actually started as poli-sci, and then kind of like 1 or 2 years in, I was like, maybe I don't want to do politics and government, so I switched to public relations. And lo and behold, I've kind of been doing politics and government ever since. This was actually taken at we had a communications department. We had an annual formal, and maybe you guys have one for the business department. We called it our comprom. But this was this is a moment of just pure bliss. So, and that was actually my advisor next to us. So I don't know. Do we have any professors in the room left? All right. Well, he was pretty badass, and I'm still actually very good friends with him today. And so that was 15 years ago. And as I said, so you guys are all freshmen, right? Generally, most freshmen in here. All right, so you guys were probably born in 1999. That's incredibly depressing. So I started as a freshman at your college in 1999. So now I'm starting to really feel old. I'm 37 years old now, so it's not that old, but probably much old in your perspective. So a couple of the things I wanted to just talk about a little bit is, so I graduated in 2002. This was right after 9/11. The economy was not doing incredibly well. I moved back to Philadelphia. I'm from the Philadelphia region originally. Came out here for York College. Studied, stayed for 4 years, graduated, moved back to Philly, and actually worked on state rep campaigns in the city. I lived in the city of Philadelphia for about 2 years. Great news about working on campaigns. If anyone's interested in politics, you get no greater experience in life and learning about humanity and people than working on a campaign. Bad news is if you lose, you tend to lose your job. So we ran a couple. I won a couple. We lost the last one, and I was out of a job. I came back to York. At the time, I still had friends that were in college. York, is anyone from York County? Awesome. Cool. Where'd you guys go to high school? Central? Nice. West York? Super cool. So where do you guys live on campus now? Okay, awesome. So I came back to York, had some friends, and actually at the time, our city of York, the city of York is about 43,000 in population in a county of about 450,000. Similar to Lancaster City, it's kind of commensurate in size and scale. Our mayor at the time was running for re-election. So I came back and started getting involved in the community, really got active in the young professional circuit, asked the mayor if I could work on his re-election campaign, worked on that, and then he won. So he was going into a second term, and then he asked if I wanted to come on and work in the economic development department, which I did. And I spent the bulk of, better part of a decade working in city economic development, and spent that, the majority of that time as the director of our economic development department. But at this time, 15 years ago, no clue what the heck I wanted to do, no clue where I was going to go, kind of have job will travel. This is, as I said, economy was a little disrupted from 9/11, so I was floating around, but came back, settled in York, and no regrets, absolutely, and would not be in the position I'm in today if not for York. So a couple of those things that really I think would have set me up for whatever version of your definition of success is building that network. So right out of college, got very heavily involved in the community. As I said, really was single, living downtown with one of my best friends, enjoying kind of living downtown and being a young professional, got involved in young professional groups. So wherever you guys end up, everyone from Pennsylvania here? Anyone not from Pennsylvania? We'll do it that way. Where are you guys from? Baltimore? Baltimore as well? Jersey. What part, did you guys know each other? No. Oh, okay. Oh, happenstance. Jersey, what part of Jersey?
Long Beach, Iowa.
Okay, nice. Awesome, excellent. So wherever you guys end up upon graduation, whether you continue your academic career, whether you get right into the professional world, wherever you wind up, generally speaking, get involved in that community. And as you even extend your academic career here, do internships, try to engage, try to get to know your surroundings, your community. Every single community that you live in will have some sort of nonprofit that is looking for assistance from free young professional talent of individuals that want to get involved. York Young Professionals, there's Lancaster Young Professionals. At the time that I was on the board for York Young Professionals, this was back in like 2005-06, we were actually working on trying to create a Pennsylvania Young Professional Network. We got it going for a couple years and then it fizzled, as volunteer organizations tend to do. JCs are great organizations. Local government, Pennsylvania has 2,600 local governments. There are 72 in York County. There's probably about that many in Lancaster County. All of those local governments are always looking for great young people to be on planning commissions, zoning hearing boards, to work on finance committees. So there's always ample opportunity to go knock on a door and get involved. And that's going to help build your resume, it's going to help build your network, and inherently will then hopefully pay off a dividend in the future when you guys are looking for jobs or making career changes. So area nonprofits, volunteership, I'm very involved in the arts community in York, got involved in our local arts nonprofit. We were creating an arts district and really trying to help lend some momentum to our burgeoning little boutique community. So our mayor at the time had announced an arts district. I got to work on that. That really helped get me involved in the community, which only helped my career, which at the time was working in city government. So it was sort of my job. I was in economic development. And then that inevitably led me to some next steps in life. But you've got to really work your tail off. And the benefit of being a young professional is generally you're right out of college, really trying to set your own mark and trying to really build your career, build your network as noted. And you generally don't have as many responsibilities as you'll have later in life when you start to get married and have kids. And you know, you're really just kind of focused on student debt and paying bills and maybe happy hour occasionally with friends. So really can work your tail off. I was very fortunate early on. I got to work on some really incredibly cool projects in York that to this day, incredibly proud of. I was just telling Katie Mahoney about this one the other day. This is a sculpture. If you're ever in York County, or if there's any cyclists in the room, we've got a great bike trail that takes you from York down to Maryland, takes you to the Maryland line and connects to another one in Maryland that goes another 25 miles. So it's like a 50-mile bike trail. Gets about 20,000 users a month. And in the city of York, we planted a life-size sculpture of a German Shepherd right in the ground where we wanted to build a dog park. This is Pal. So this was probably done in maybe 2006 or 7. The city of York had a great philanthropic guy. You guys, on a lot of buildings, you have the High family. They're an awesome family in Lancaster County, very, very philanthropic. We have Gladfelter in York. And Art Gladfelter was in his late 80s at the time. We wanted to thank him. He had just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. We wanted to try to capture a moment before he started to slip, before his health started to slip, and we wanted to thank him. So we reached out to his wife and said, what would Mr. Gladfelter let us thank him with? And she said, well, he always loved his childhood dog. Any dog enthusiasts in the room? All right, get ready. So this is a German Shepherd. When Mr. Gladfelter was 18 years old, he had Pal. Pal was 3 years old. Art Gladfelter enlisted in the Army. It was World War II. Enlisted in the Army. He enlisted his dog in the Army too, in the Dogs for Defense program. Art goes overseas to fight the Germans. Pal is trained by a handler never to leave that handler, and he's trained to be a messenger, to be a sniffer, to be, just generally to kind of go out in the field and look for mines and stuff like that. Trained to never leave the handler. They're on an Allied occupied beach in France. Mr. Gladfelter's there with his unit. Happens that Pal is not that far away. bolts off, leaving his handler, runs down the beach about 100 yards, finds Art Gladfelter, jumps in his arms. So they're reunited on an Allied-occupied beach in France in the middle of World War II. So Art goes on to serve a couple more years, is honorably discharged. Pal is honorably discharged. They end up living together another 9 years when Pal dies. So we put this statue in the ground. It had a good screenplay, good movie. I was never able to watch War Horse, but I think this would be a good movie. But in any event, so we thanked him. So I was charged with the task of raising $35,000 to have a life-size sculpture of Pal built. We placed it there right on our rail trail. Also, it was in the public art realm. I got to raise the money to build a statue of the Marquis de Lafayette. Any Hamilton fans in the room? Remember Lafayette? Came from France. He was sort of George Washington's adopted son. He was the first nationalized citizen of America. It was the first, we actually nationalized him, meaning Congress passed a law that said he has earned the same rights as anyone else that was born in this country. So Lafayette was a huge help. He actually spent some time in York during the Revolutionary War and gave a very famous toast about George Washington. There had been this cabal to overthrow Washington as commander-in-chief. General Gates, who had a place in York, they were drinking one night at a bar. It was the Plow Tavern, and a bunch of folks are talking about how they need to oust George Washington because he just hadn't been doing his job and we weren't winning. And Lafayette, who is very well respected, gives a toast saying to our commander-in-chief that he remain at the head of the army until victory is won, kind of thus killing that cabal against Washington. So we have a statue of Lafayette, life-size, and he's kind of become our William Penn sculpture in Philadelphia. He gets adorned with jerseys and beads and all types of fun stuff. But I got to work with a great organization, the Society of the Cincinnati, which is no one's ever heard of, but if you watched Hamilton, it comes up. George Washington is like a fraternal order that is based out of DC, and they love Lafayette, so they helped write a big check for that. So I got to do some fun projects. We built a stadium back in 2006, minor league baseball stadium, Atlantic League. If you've been to a Barnstormers game in Lancaster, we're in the league with them. So we built a $34.5 million, 6,000 seat stadium, only stadium in America in professional baseball that opened entirely debt-free on day one. We actually raised about $20 million, and the rest coming in the form of grants or a long-term lease from the team. So we were able to cobble together this project, build a stadium, averaging 70 games a year with 4,100 per game. We bring 300,000 people through the turnstiles on a season basis. It's introduced our downtown to an entirely new population in York, and it's helped have an economic development ripple effect throughout our downtown. So for the York folks, if you've been to downtown or Bruvino or any of the restaurants downtown, a lot of that was not there before the stadium. This really was a catalytic economic development project for us. And that was a fun project. That was a great treat to work on. And along those lines, we worked on residential housing. So we started building a lot of residential housing in our city. And this is right across the street from the stadium. This is called Koto, kind of short for Codoris, which is our waterway that bisects our city. So we built this. This is an adaptive reuse. You can see the old building on this side. It was actually an auto parts dealer at one point. And on the second floor, it had a roller skating rink. Times were different. But you can actually see the track kind of in the floor. So we built 35 market rate apartments. This was the first LEED certified residential housing project in the city of York. LEED is environmental sustainability. And we did it mixed use, meaning there were mixed uses, residential and commercial. There's a first floor restaurant in there. And there's also a construction company that moved from outside of the city in the suburbs, brought its headquarters to downtown York. So bringing about 35 employees with it. So that was a $13.5 million project. All told, in the last decade, York City, which is similar to Lancaster City, has seen about, I'll call it $350 million in development. So over $250 million has been invested in really trying to enhance the quality of place, enhance the residential opportunity, really for your millennial generation, and that a lot of you are moving into cities and moving downtown and want the urban lifestyle and want walkability and all that stuff. Gave a heck of a lot of walking tours. Really trying to sell our city, really trying to get investment, have an absolute blast. If anyone ever wants to come over to York, I'm going to leave a stack of my cards later. Or you want to intern in our office, which I'll get into in a little bit. We do like to have fun, so please take us up on that. And this was an awesome project. If anyone's driven up and down 83, there's a company called Maple Press. They're a book binding company. This was the former Maple Press building in the city of York. This is in center field of our stadium. 55,000 square feet, had been vacant for better part of a couple decades. And again, you guys probably don't know the band Live. They blew up in the 90s. They're part of that 90s kind of alternative rock culture of Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and stuff like that. So they blew up in the 90s with a couple albums, sold 30 million albums, toured the world, did Woodstock 94 and 99, had an MTV Unplugged. So they kind of made it big. Now they're all like 39, 40, still in the music business, but they all grew up in York. So they actually came back, bought this building, and have made it their professional recording studio. So this is the type of space you walk into and you're like, wow, I can't believe this is here. So now they're flying a lot of bands in. Jerry Harrison from the Talking Heads, again, if there's any classic rock folks, in the 80s, Talking Heads were a very big band. He's helping to record younger musicians nowadays. So this is part of their recording studio. They just got, this is like the Oscars of recording studios, and they were named as one of the winners back in 2014. So in addition to the studio, they actually have a company called United Fibre and Data. UFD is running a 400-mile privately owned fiber optic line from New York, kind of looping into Pennsylvania. It will touch Allentown, Reading, Lancaster, and then York, and then it'll sort of loop back down to DC. And there's a market for that because after 9/11, the financial industry in New York lost billions of dollars of data, and now the only real fiber optic line that runs up and down the East Coast is along 95. And Homeland Security has designated that as a terrorist blast zone, as awful and scary as that may sound. But to do a looped out network like that has great valuable potential because they can sell it as a redundant option for like large companies that want to back up to their data. So they're actually investing back in their city, not only in their kind of man cave performing arts studio, recording studio, but also in creating this incredibly innovative fiber optic line that really only Comcast and Verizon have kind of tapped into right now. So they have incredibly high potential. And right now the fiber has made its way to York, and they're kind of pulling fiber. And once they sort of connect it in York, they can light it between New York, and then they'll kind of work on the next phase down to DC. And along that way, I got to meet Mr. McFeely from Mr. Rogers. I don't know if anyone ever watched Mr. Rogers, but this was just a highlight of my life. And I don't think you could get away with the name Mr. McFeely in this day and age. And I got married. This is my wife, Jen. So it's just Jen and I. We've been married for 8 years. No kids, just the dog. Dog is fulfilling her maternal instinct for the time being. And we absolutely love her. Jen, my wife, has a coffee shop in downtown York. Her and her friend out of college went right into, she worked as a barista for about 10 years, and then that store closed in downtown York. So that was the swift kick in the butt she needed to open her own. So she's had that for about 6.5 years now. It's called the Green Bean. Actually one of only 30 female-owned roasting companies in the world. They actually roast coffee on site. And so she was 26 years old at the time she opened. We met in a coffee shop. I would go in and I would be the guy that would linger too long and not tip well enough, and she the chatty barista. So she's had it now 6.5 years. They opened their business. It required about $60,000 in debt, and they were able to raise that. We cobbled together $10,000 as young 20-somethings, probably too foolish at the time, thinking let's do this. We borrowed $40,000 from Community First Fund, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but for anyone that ever wants to go into business, they're a great resource for small business lending. They exist to give money to small businesses. And then they were able to pull about $20,000 from the city of York. It actually had a restaurant loan program at the time. So they're now almost debt-free. In fact, they make their last debt payment next month. And as I said, they've been in business for about 6.5 years. And even on her worst day, I still say you still run a coffee shop, and that's awesome. That's a dream job for most, although she does smell like coffee 24/7, including her hair and her purse. We'll kind of walk by people in Target and they'll smell coffee. So I guess it's not bad marketing. So in terms of building your network, we got involved, got to know a lot of people, worked our butt off, got married along the way, and then continue to build your brand. So really, you guys are all individual entrepreneurs in some form or fashion. Whatever you end up doing after you graduate, wherever you end up going, work for a very large company, work for a small mom and pop shop, or start your own company, you're still an individual enterprise because you're trying to advance your own career, right? So what's the brand that you want people to know about you? Is it that you're incredibly ambitious, that you're incredibly bright, you're communicative, well-spoken, you're a good public speaker, you're a team player, whatever it is, but start working on those factors now because they're going to carry with you. And it's kind of like your cumulative GPA. The higher you start out with, the easier it is by your senior year. If you really kind of botch your first 2 years of college, it becomes much harder to pull that cum up. So same thing in terms of your brand. You really want to get those great criteria early on so they stick with you and hopefully they spread. So I don't really know what my brand would be other than that I have long hair. And it has at least become an identifiable feature. So in 2013, I spent the better part of a decade working for the city of York. In 2013, our then state representative ran for statewide office called Auditor General. So there's governor, there's lieutenant governor, there's treasurer, attorney general, and auditor general. So his name is Eugene D. Pasquale. He's still Auditor General. He's in his second term. It's a 4-year term. So he was a state rep where I lived in the city of York. So he ran for Auditor General and won. It opened a seat up. So it was January of 08 or 09. This was right after the Obama re-election. So he wins on that ballot. He then resigns his seat in the House. It opens up a House seat. So there's a special election that May. So we had a 100-day campaign, 100-day race. And I sort of figured, what the hell? I was 32 years old at the time. Had great support from the 2 mayors that I had been working for at that time. Good network, and kind of was like, the hell with it. Roll the dice and let's do it. And if we win, awesome. Let's have some fun, get some stuff done. If not, I had a great job and was certainly comfortable where I was. So in 2013, I ran for office. Had the backing of our now mayor, Kim Bracey, who she had actually was running for re-election the same time I was. So she had won her second term. She's still in office. She's actually running for a third term. So I won. I was sworn into the House on June 2nd in 2013. That's my wife. She looks incredibly nervous because literally the second we walked up there, it was a special election, so I was the only one getting sworn in. And I just said, whatever you do not drop the Bible. So I freaked the hell out of her. So I was sworn into office. And Katie, do you see David Gonzalez back there? He was there too. He works with us now. He was interning with me at the time. Anyway, sworn into office, and I got to serve in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. It's a 2-year term. I served a couple terms there. It was an absolute blast. Loved every day of it, loved the job. Represent 65,000 people. There are 203 House members in Pennsylvania, each representing about 65,000 people, and then there's 50 senators. We're bicameral in Pennsylvania, meaning there's House and Senate. So just like federal government, you got a governor, you got the House and the Senate as the legislative branch. Does everyone remember your 3 branches of government from 4th grade? Testing you. All right, what are they?
The executive branch, the judicial branch, and the congressional.
Nicely done, Yahtzee. Good job. So we were serving in the legislative, obviously. I got to serve on a couple committees, do some really good work. I got to wear high heels. I only put that picture in there because if there are any individuals that want to wear high heels, Friday, October 5th or 6th, we have Walk a Mile in her shoes in downtown York to raise money for our YWCA Access York domestic violence programs. So we actually don high heels, we walk 1 mile, and we raise a heck of a lot of money. The goal is $75,000 this year. That goes all to our YWCA to help with any domestic violence programs. So I will just say, gentlemen, guys have to be part of this solution. So please, as you get older, give thought to that and always help give back where you can. But you also get the value of learning that I don't know why the hell women wear high heels. Other than they do make your calves look great. I did learn the bend and snap. But they're like a medieval form of torture, and those were Comfort Plus. And I will also say, gentlemen, that on Thursday nights, Payless has a good BOGO. So this was one day. I got to do some incredible stuff with our governor, who obviously is from York County and had known very well. So really serving in the House of Representatives was an absolute blast. I encourage everyone to get involved in government in some form or fashion, whether it's running for office, but just be engaged in government. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. But back in 2000, let's see, what are we in now? 17, so 2016. So I was running for office, having a blast, having lots of fun. That was the best day ever because of the Humane Society. I got Legislator of the Year. That's our dog, Lucy. So it was all as a result of her. That darn dog got me so many votes. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I couldn't make a parade one year, so we found this kid named Marshall, and he served as the mini Kevin Schreiber in the parade, which was just, he's a good kid. He's in 5th grade now. But along the way, you build your team. So if you're building your brand, you're building your network, you guys are going to hit that first phase of career growth where you're really becoming incredibly successful, and then everything that you do is about the people around you. Because sooner or later, hopefully everyone realizes that we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. You're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. So when you find those good people, don't let them go, hold on to them, and help them expand their career as well. Pay it forward, so to speak. I've had some incredibly great people in my life that helped me in my career, the mayors that I worked for, obviously family, wife, but I've had some incredible people along the way that have helped nudge my career forward, so pay that back. So these were 3 mayors. So this was John Brenner, who hired me, Kim Bracey, who's my BFF, and then Mayor Bill Althouse. He was our last 3-term mayor. He served in the 80s and 90s. I didn't work for him, but he was very much still engaged in the community. And this was my swearing-in day, so I had invited all 3 mayors up, all of which I would consider friends, all of which were incredible influence in my life. This was my deputy director when I was at Economic Development Department, and I was the director. I'm wearing that shirt because his name, I kid you not, his name is Shilvosky Buffalo. Best name in all of Pennsylvania. I don't know what his mom was thinking, but I found that shirt and had to buy it. To the left, Suli Pinos was my chief of staff. I stole her from Brooklyn. She actually came to York to work on the Obama re-elect campaign, met her there, and then when I was running for office, I said, hey, do you want to run my campaign? She helped on my campaign, and then I hired her to be my chief of staff. And this tall drink of water to the right is Kyle Joins. He had interned with me when I was with the city of York, his senior year. It lined up perfectly that he graduated in May of 2013. I was sworn in June. I asked if I could hire him, so he's been with me since. So in the recent career move, which I'll get to in a second, I brought both of those 2 forward. So this is our team now. So I now work for the York County Economic Alliance. Back in some point last year, I was running for re-election. It was March, or I guess I had gotten through the primary, so it was May. So I'm running for re-election. York County Economic Alliance had asked if I would be interested in becoming its new president CEO. And I said, that's an awesome opportunity. Holy hell, let me think about this. So spent far too much time debating it and weighing pros and cons, and every single day was different. Have a really fun day, you get back from Harrisburg, and I was like, I love this job too much, no way I'd leave it. Or you get back and you just have a miserable day, and you're like, all right, time to go, go on to the next one. But I did make the decision, obviously. It was early August in 2016, so it was a little over a year ago. Decided to withdraw from the ballot. I wasn't going to run for re-election, and on August 4th, I think it was, the YCEA announced that I would take over as president CEO. So I've been there for almost coming up on a year now, and have an incredible team, and have had the great fortune of hiring incredibly awesome, talented people like Katie Mahoney. And I brought Suli and Kyle. You can see that he's still a tall drink of water in the back. So I brought them with me. So you really have an opportunity to build your team. So in each of those settings, whether it was those mayors, whether it was Buff, who I'm still, would consider a best friend of mine, to the Suli and Kyle who worked with me in the house, who are incredibly bright young professionals, to Katie and her marketing team that she's now hired, to our entire family at YCEA. Really, you surround yourself with good people because inherently they're going to complement your flaws, and we all have them. I know that I can't say no to people, and I know that I'm probably too verbose, so I know that they will give me social cues to either shut up and go to questions, or that they'll jump in and say, nope, 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 can't do that. So I know I have some flaws, but hopefully you surround yourself with people that will complement you. So then it becomes really just making your paycheck your passion. And that kind of gets to the cheesy, like, do what you love. It is true, because the last thing, life is too darn short. We only get one spin on this earth as far as we know. Do as much good as you can, get as much as accomplished, and have as much of an impact as possible. If you don't enjoy your current setting, not now, but when you're working or you're professional, then change it. Uproot, go. You're an incredibly transient generation, the millennials. You guys will move. I think you're incredibly, I don't buy into any, you guys tend to get a lot of negative stuff heaped on you, the millennial generation. I actually think you guys are going to knock everyone's socks off, and you're already changing the world. You're going to continue to do it. The millennials, by nature, you guys will actually move to a community you want to live in before you get a job. You will decide an employment decision based on the flexibility that job will give you to be engaged in the community or give back civically. Those are incredibly great characteristic traits, and generations before you don't have that to the depth and level that you do. So I think you guys really do have some incredible characteristics that really will change the world. So now, York County Economic Alliance, so took over on December 1 of last year, so it's coming up on a year for me. This was an organization that was formed 6 years ago by merging our Chamber of Commerce and our Economic Development Corporation. So you can see that's kind of all the stuff that we do, and that's the big umbrella of the organization. We have about 23 staff, and it's a couple $1 million a year organization, and we do a heck of a lot, and I won't kind of belabor the boring stuff, but We do a lot of brick and mortar redevelopment and development. So if you were ever in downtown York, that stadium that we worked on, we actually own it and we developed it. And when I was with the city, I was helping along the way. So we did the stadium, an arts center that York College is actually leased now for its senior artist students. Harley Davidson, if anyone's familiar, Harley Davidson has its like, in the world of Harley, it's Milwaukee and York. So they have their headquarters out here, about 1,000 employees. They make motorcycles. It's manufacturing facilities along Route 30. I'm not a motorcycle enthusiast, but as I've walked through this plant on numerous occasions, it's hard not to be impressed when you have raw material on one side and finished motorcycles on the other. And a motorcycle comes off the line every 80 seconds. Think of how many freaking motorcycles that is. That's nuts. So Fortune 500 company. So a couple years ago, we were trying to keep Harley. They were contemplating moving. So we had put a package together to basically flip their campus. We took their old facility. We built a brand new facility for them. They moved all operations in there. We took the old one, we tore it down, and we built something new in its place. So that was a project we got to work on a few years ago. We've been working in some of our small towns like Hanover and doing Main Street quality of life enhancements. Do a heck of a lot in workforce and education, in fun stuff, networking, business financing. We lent about $30 million. We helped lend $30 million last year to businesses throughout York County that leveraged an additional $17 million. So we're kind of, really boots on the ground, helping businesses expand, helping them get up and running, from entrepreneurs to manufacturing facilities. You can really see the reach of our organization. Do a lot of workforce development. Right now, we have a skills gap. We have this called the Silver Wave, the retirement of baby boomers in York County. We're estimating 25 to 30,000 will retire in the next 10 years. That's about a quarter of our workforce. So how are we going to fill that? Taking that institutional knowledge transfer and taking that out of an organization. That's something to be concerned about. So we try to keep our finger on that pulse too. And right now we're doing an incredibly fun project called, if anyone again has ever been to York, we have the Yorktown Hotel, built in 1925, a historic hotel, it's about 150 rooms. A couple years ago, it really declined in ownership and investment and just deferred maintenance. Gorgeous hotel. Everyone in York has a Yorktown. Do you guys have a Yorktown story ever? Any proms there? No? No proms? Obviously you're not married, you didn't get married there. Your parents may have, you'll have to ask your parents. But Yorktown Hotel had seen better years. We actually stepped in to acquire it so that it wouldn't either become abandoned, derelict, or be sold for a non-complementary use to our downtown. So we acquired it. This is the Yorktown today, and this will hopefully be the Yorktown tomorrow. So we're actually working, it's about a $30-ish million project. You notice I say ish in there. So it'll be about a $30-ish million project. We're actually working with hotel operators right now to determine if we can secure a brand, whether it's Courtyard, Hilton, Marriott, any of those. And we're going to decrease the size of the rooms from 140 to probably 100 to 120. That will make the business operations, that'll make it cash flow a little bit better. And then that'll give us 1 or 2 floors that we can sublet out for commercial office space or residential space or anything like that. So this is an awesome project. We secured a $10 million grant from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and then we're going to try to raise the rest, and then we'll have some conventional financing, about $5 million, that we think the project can handle. And just literally last Friday, a week ago today, we had a ceremonial sledgehammer party. So Katie and her marketing team got to plan. This was to kick off some demolition. So we're not going to tear the building down, but back here, you can see this was an addition put on in 1957, and it's kind of aluminum siding, and there's a parking deck underneath it that's kind of deteriorated. So we're going to tear that down. And what you can't see is there's also a church back here that we acquired that had been vacant for several years. So we've acquired the church in hopes to build sort of an event venue in the church, or non-denominational wedding venue. So if you want to have your wedding kind of lock stock in the Yorktown, you'll be able to do it there. So we're going to start demolition here in the next couple months, tearing the rear portion of that off. The rest will be redeveloped. So we literally threw some sledgehammers into a wall and got to kind of ceremonially kick off the demolition and have a party. So this was the team and some of the community leaders from town that are working on the project. And also just recently we launched in York the Women's Business Center. This was a partnership. This was an entity that had been housed under York College for about 10 years and just needed to launch. It was time that it had to grow out of York College. York College had kind of kicked it around a couple times in its business department or its entrepreneur department. So we actually took ownership of it. took it under our wing, are now going to grow it for a whole lot of reasons, but not limited to that. Obviously, women, you're 51% of the population. You actually make up, in York County, 60% of the workforce. But in Pennsylvania, you're under 15% of corporate leadership or governance positions. So you're woefully underrepresented. Gentlemen, it's not a slight against you guys. We've had it long enough. Got to get some women better represented in corporate leadership, corporate governance, and I'll actually throw a plug in for government too. In Pennsylvania, we have less women in elected office than the country of Afghanistan. So we need more women in government. So in any event, we just took over the Women's Business Center. This was the ribbon cutting kind of launch party that we had a couple weeks ago. And this is kind of three-legged stool for the WBCO. It's mentorship. So we have some incredibly talented professional women that want to give back and want to impart some of the wisdom to the next generation. So we're really looking at kind of 22s, sort of right out of college to 35, 40-year-olds. So women that are either in their first phase of career development or re-entering the workforce, because another interesting statistic is that men will reach the strata of CEO about 15 years earlier than women. That there's a direct correlation that women leave the workplace, and they leave the workplace typically to raise a family, and then they enter back in. So in any event, we have some incredibly talented professional women that want to impart that wisdom. So they're going to do mentorship, professional development. They have a lunch once a month with a topical speaker, and then advocacy, trying to tackle and educate and better inform the community on women in the workforce, women in the workplace issues that are relevant. So for any of the business admin folks, if anyone is interested in launching a business or opening their own business or getting into business, these are just some resources that I wanted to give you. And happy to make this available afterwards if need be, so you don't have to write it down. But I mentioned Community First Fund. My wife had used it. They serve 8 counties, Lancaster, Chester, Dauphin, York, Adams. They're what's called a CDFI, Community Development Finance Institution. They're like a nonprofit bank. They exist solely to give money to small businesses and to give money to minority communities and underserved areas. So that's their job. Now you pay a little bit of a premium for that, that the interest rate is probably above prime, but it's access to capital, which is very difficult if you're launching a coffee shop with 2 26-year-old young professional women. But they were able to access capital and borrow $40,000 and use that to leverage another $20,000, and it was a 6-year loan term. So CFF is a great organization. They also do free business planning prep. So if you're working on a business plan, because of the money that they receive, they provide free technical assistance to small businesses and entrepreneurs to help them tweak their business plan. SBDC's Small Business Development Center, the closest one is at Kutztown. They get funding through the federal government and SBA, but they exist also to help provide technical assistance. SCORE is like an organization of a lot of retired entrepreneurs and retired professionals. So it's kind of capturing that institutional knowledge and helping them impart it. Ben Franklin Tech Partners, quasi-state. They're a separate entity, but they receive significant amount of state resources, and that's to invest or come in as an equity partner in innovation in tech companies and do patent development. So their closest office is in Harrisburg, but they will do a couple $1 million a year of investment in the Commonwealth. DCD's Pennsylvania Department of Community Economic Development, SBA is Small Business Admin, and then even in York we have a business center, but most communities have one. You guys certainly have one here at Elizabethtown. And I just wanted to talk a little bit also about a cool initiative that we have coming up in York, Lancaster, and Harrisburg on October 10th. As a region, we sought designation as a Rise of the Rest community. Rise of the Rest is spearheaded by Steve Case, who founded AOL. Does anyone remember AOL? Damn. Okay, we have a couple of head nods. Did anyone have an AOL screen name? All right, you guys are too young for that. What was yours? Probably Sexy Girl. No. I know. Instant Messenger. Does anyone remember Instant Messenger? No? You've got mail? All right. Yes, everyone had one. Mine was Snoochie Boochie, so there's no pride there. But in any event, Steve Case sold AOL a couple years ago to Time Warner. He now has a venture fund out of DC called Revolution that has over $1 billion capitalized. They make investments in businesses and innovation and community, specifically looking at disruptive innovation. So we applied as a region and got it. They pick 5 cities and they do a 5-city bus tour in 5 days. So Central Pennsylvania was the first region that they've ever selected. They'll then go to Ann Arbor, Indianapolis, Columbus, Ohio, and Green Bay. And in each of these communities, they invest $100,000 through a pitch competition. So if anyone is interested in coming to that pitch competition, let us know. It will be on October 10th. I'll leave a stack of cards here. And there's 8 companies that will be pitching for $100,000, 8 from throughout the region. The thesis behind Rise of the Rest is that Steve Case just recently wrote a book called The Third Wave, which is basically the first wave was building the internet, second wave was building on the internet, third wave is the internet's seamlessly integrated into our life, democratizing innovation. It can occur anywhere, and it's happening all over the country, but 80% of all venture fund goes to Silicon Valley, New York City, and Boston outside Harvard. So his goal is to shine a spotlight on these secondary and tertiary markets like ours, where innovation is occurring, and then hopefully drive attention to it, drive new investment to it, and help more innovation occur. So his bus is literally launching this 5-day bus tour in York first, and then they go to Lancaster in the afternoon, then Harrisburg at night. Harrisburg's where the pitch competition will take place. So if anyone has any interest in going to that, it's at the Harrisburg Midtown Arts Center. I think it's at 7 or 7:30 or something like that. So in any event, let us know and we can get you invites and seating and all that stuff. But very cool initiative. And I think even more to the bigger picture, the discussion and dialogue that it's created in this region, which Elizabethtown is in, is really about how do we pivot our economy that right now is considerably weighted to manufacturing and agriculture. How do you pivot it to a knowledge-based economy? With the rise of automation, autonomous vehicles, robotic technology, manufacturing certainly will continue to benefit from that, but the workforce will continue to lean out. So what can we be doing to pivot, not bury our head in the sand and say that will never happen, but actually try to capture it, take advantage of it. So just for a couple fun, and then please, if you have any questions, by all means. But a couple things I just wanted to note. Obviously, my background is significantly in government and in elected office. So one of those little life lessons I just wanted to say was engage in politics. Has anyone in the room ever written an elected official? 1, 2, 3? What did you guys write about? Can I ask?
I wrote to want to speak to him about a few things, so I went and met with Scott Perry.
Awesome. He's my congressman too.
The Iran nuclear negotiation. No.
It's pretty heady. Interesting. Which elected? Did you go to Senate, Congress?
I forget which one it was. I actually went and spoke to them, so it wasn't. I didn't.
Oh, nice.
I went to speak to them.
Awesome. Actually, we just had a meeting with Congressman Perry a couple weeks ago on the H-1B visa program, which is worker visas, student visas. There's a lot of discussion of immigration, obviously. What did you write about?
It was just a couple hot topics for a school project.
Nice.
It was just kind of like try to get a response if you can.
Very cool. So I would encourage everyone, engage with your politician. There's an old adage that if you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu. So take advantage of it. Tweet at them, Facebook them, whatever. I can attest that I had multiple Twitter accounts, Facebook pages, all that stuff, but it all went to my iPhone, and I generally saw all of it, which was a pain in the butt sometimes. But do it, because if you're not, then they're going to vote however they will, but they're not going to take into account your voice, and you really do have a voice. You're the largest generation in our country right now. Also, I think in many ways, and I'm talking a little bit more heavily on government right now, but compromise used to be a prerequisite for our job in government. We've sort of lost that art, and now it seems that compromise is viewed more as a weakness than it is a strength. So bear in mind that compromise really is a strength, and it's an art form. The ability to negotiate, and you guys are, all of you in business admin, you'll negotiate something over the course of your career, but negotiation really is about the art of the possible and finding out how you can drive those similarities and that commonalities to an end goal. So it really is a strength, it's not a weakness. And civil discourse really is healthy. We have also gotten into our sort of echo chamber society where you can listen to the news you want, you can see the Facebook algorithms that will give you only feeds that you want to see and you generally agree with. It's actually incredibly healthy when our democracy has opposing opinions that really talk things out and try to compromise, because I can tell you the vast majority of Americans and Pennsylvanians walk a fine line down the middle and they lean left or right on certain things, but ultimately they really just want to see progress and good things come of their government. Intern as much as the heck as possible, and I've kind of touched on that. If anyone, it's a 40-minute drive from our office here. If anyone ever has an interest in interning in our office, please take us up on it. I will leave a stack of my cards here. We had 9-ish interns over the summer. We have 2 right now. But as I touched on, we do everything from business lending, so there's definitely finance. We do brick and mortar development. If you want to get involved in economic development, we do small business assistance. We really do have a broad reach throughout the community, so please take us up on it. For credit, not for credit, whatever you want. We can cater to your schedule. Marketing, we have an awesome marketing team. You guys have already changed the world. And then really take your job seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously because, again, as I noted, as far as we know, we get one spin on this earth, so have as much fun as possible and really have as much of a positive impact. But when you do engage with your politicians, do it civilly. And civility is also an art form. And again, it's become very easy to sit behind a keyboard and really say negative things about people and kind of be very venomous to opposing parties or opposing opinions. So I actually can attest that the civil discussions that I would have with people, even when we agree to disagree, were incredibly beneficial to me while I was elected because it informs on the decisions that you make. And it is really helpful. But I could also attest that when you just get someone that is dropping expletives left and right on you, you tend to maybe want to block them out. I did get called an ass clown once on Facebook. I'm not sure what that means. All I would say is if you're ever going to do that, just hashtag it so maybe they can trend. But do it civilly. It is incredibly important that you're part of that dialogue, have that dialogue, and as I noted, if you're not, then they're going to make decisions that will inherently and inevitably affect your life. So do it civilly. It really is an important part of our government. So, any questions? Yes?
Yeah, so I'm actually from York. I'm not sure if you
Awesome, cool. Oh no, where from?
But I graduated actually the same high school I did.
Central?
Central York.
Okay, so where do you guys live? Central's a big district.
Yeah, so I'm on the west end in West Manchester Township.
Awesome, all right, very cool. Was I your state rep or was Seth Grove? Because I had a slice of West Man.
I'll see if I can remember. I think it was Fibre.
You should have just said, it was you. I voted for you. You're awesome. You kicked ass, man. No, gotcha.
But I did have a question. So I wanted to know what your opinion was on the property taxes in New York City and if it's affecting the development there.
Sure, absolutely. The question was about property taxes. So Pennsylvania, we have a pretty archaic form of government. As I noted, we have a lot of local government. I got my master's from Penn State, did my thesis on the Commonwealth of Duplication, on fragmentation in local government, 72 local governments in York County. And the primary revenue generator for local government in Pennsylvania is property tax. So it's a millage rate assessed on affixed to the assessed value of your real estate, your land, or your house. And in our cities, our urban cores tend to have disproportionately high property tax rates because, the city of York is a 5.2 square mile city. Lancaster's about the same, it's like 6.5 square miles. So it's a very small geographic area, tends to have a high concentration of impoverished people, and it also has a high concentration of tax-exempt real estate. So it has the county seat of government, so all government buildings are there. It has education, not only its school district, but colleges, things like that. Has a heck of a lot of churches, has a heck of a lot of social services. And it tends, most of those organizations serve the whole county, but they tend to be localized in your cities. So in York City, for instance, 37% of its real estate is tax exempt, not paying taxes. Right. The average in York County is 9%. So this is a disproportionate high amount of real estate not paying taxes. If it was paying taxes, it would pay $10 million, which obviously is 37% of the general fund. So you could do a heck of a lot with $10 million. And same is true in Lancaster and certainly on a much larger scale in Philadelphia. And there's also another caveat to Pennsylvania taxing structure called earned income tax. So we all pay, when you start making money, you all pay earned income tax. But you pay it to the municipality you live in, not the one you work in. I had a bill in the House to split that 50-50 between the one you live in and the one you work in. So I can also, the example of York City, there's 43,000 residents, but 45,000 people commute in the city every day. The 43,000 residents earn annually about $300 million. The commuters earn $1.2 billion. But despite spending 40 plus hours of their life in the city of York and needing the streets, the traffic lights, the police, the fire, they don't pay any of their income tax to the city. They pay it to the municipality they live in. So I thought it was a fair compromise, split it down the middle. If you live and work in the same local government, they get it all, if not 50-50. But of course, all of the non-city local governments would not like that because suddenly they're going to see a significant amount of their revenue taken away and they'll have to increase their property taxes, which would bring parity. So right now, it's disproportionately high because cities have to tax much higher rates because they have 37% of real estate exempt, and they don't receive that income tax. So either you're bringing out parity by forcing others to raise their taxes, which no one likes, or trying to change the system. So right now, property tax, there's a bill that's been around since the 80s to eliminate property taxes on school districts and go entirely to sales tax and income tax. And to do that would need to raise $14 billion, and that's a heck of a lot of money to raise. So it's tricky. That's not the best answer, but that's why we're in the predicament we're in. But to your question, it is absolutely, it can be regressive when it gets to the point at which it's at when it's disproportionately high, absolutely suppresses value. If you cut, I live in the city of York, if you cut my tax bill by 60% tomorrow, I'd add $100,000 of value to my house. You generate wealth overnight. So it artificially suppresses the market, which is unfortunate. So,
Thank you.
yep. So where do you live in York? Or where?
Same area as Finland.
Okay, nice, awesome. So any other questions? Yes.
So one of the topics I wrote my congressman about was net neutrality.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, with your history in politics, if you have an opinion either way, favoring either
Yes.
side or
So part of the discussion, I think, will take care of itself potentially as the market. Comcast right now is really shifting its business plan. It just wants to be a content delivery source. There's a reason they bought 30 Rock and NBC. I mean, I think they would like to get out of the infrastructure side to provide last mile infrastructure, which is, that fiber line that I was talking about earlier. I mean, Comcast has to take it direct to your home. That's incredibly expensive. Verizon has to. If you look throughout Pennsylvania, there are regions of Pennsylvania that are still at dial-up speed, which is just nuts to think about. And that's because they're still they're depending on copper wire infrastructure, and Verizon, not picking on them, but they haven't gone in to replace it to fiber because it's so capital intensive. So with respect to, so some of it I think will take care of itself, and I think eventually, unfortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, government's going to have to take on more of the burden of infrastructure because Comcast is just going to continue to shift more and more towards content delivery. And the other added is as we start to launch 5G speeds of phone and Wi-Fi, I mean, we may actually be able to get out of having to have hard lines. We're actually looking at a project in the city of York now to create a smart city, which would layer a mesh fabric of wireless internet that's at sort of broadband 5G speed to the residents and then hardline to businesses. So we're kind of looking at that now, and it's not incredibly expensive. And the technology's there that this might be a $5 to $8 million investment, which is not a heck of a lot when you consider there's 43,000 residents and 45,000 commuters and 14,000 buildings. So anyway, but with respect to content delivery and being boxed out or boxed in, I would err on the side of transparency and err on the side of protecting an individual's privacy and also enabling competition. So if that helps. But hopefully the market will help. But my hunch is that I also don't think that the internet provider should be able to choke your speed and charge you different rates. I do think it should be treated as a public utility. I mean, I think everyone would attest that if you do not have internet access, you are significantly disadvantaged. So I do not think that the internet provider should be able to choke your speed and require you to pay more. I would look at it as water or something else. I mean, really, has anyone had to do like Maslow's hierarchy in a sociological class yet? Or psych class? It's kind of like self-actualization is at the top. It's a psychology thing. But the base of the pyramid is basic need. And I would argue that like Wi-Fi is basic need now. It's not just food, clothing, shelter. It's Wi-Fi and then all the way up to self-actualization. Questions? Nothing? Come on. Those are two good ones. Hit me with something.
Yeah, hit them with something.
What is the source of revenue for your organization?
I'm sorry?
What's the source of revenue?
Source of revenue for our organization. So we get $846,000 from our county commissioners from county tax dollars, and that's to effectively serve as the economic development agency for York County. We leverage that by generating about $1.2 million in membership fees and sponsorship and events. So we have 1,100 businesses and organizations, nonprofits included, that invest in an annual membership. That 1,100 represent 51,000 employees throughout York County, which again is about 25% of the workforce. So those are our two primary sources. We get a couple, like $100,000 in transactional fees, development fees, grant administration, stuff like that. Yeah,
Well, you mentioned a competition in 5G.
yeah.
I was going to ask, do you think that 5G will completely destroy kind of regular telecommunications that we have now? Or do you think it's just going to be another hiccup like 4G was?
I don't, and only because you still need a backbone of infrastructure. Like you will still, and as far as we know, and Einstein's special relativity theory had proved this, as far as we know, nothing travels faster than light. And nothing will travel faster than light through glass in fiber optic. So you're still going to need a backbone of infrastructure. 5G is just going to be boosted out wirelessly, but it still has to exist somewhere in the form of infrastructure. No different than the cloud. Everything is shifting to cloud computing. The cloud still has to be manifested somewhere in the form of servers and racks and racks of servers that are air conditioned and maintained. So I think there still has to be a backbone of infrastructure. Anything else? I know we have a couple minutes left. All right, so then the last little lesson that I will give you as you embark on your professional career, be it 3 years from now, or you go right into grad school, or you open a business tomorrow from your dorm room and are incredibly successful. Whatever you do, doing cool shit matters. So I was gauging the audience to see if you guys are appropriate or not, but I have the utmost confidence you're all adults. Whatever you do, I said, make your passion your paycheck. Do what you love, do it well. Abe Lincoln had said, whatever you are, be a good one. Doing cool shit really does matter. And never underestimate the impact you can have on someone else's life, whether you know it or not. So if you ever have a chance to get on MSNBC in the background of a senator, do it. If you ever get a chance to participate in a food eating contest with your mayor, do it. This was disgusting. We had to eat pig's feet, a cow tongue, and souse, which, if anyone is central Pennsylvania, I didn't know what it was, but it looked like gelatin with bacon crap in it. I don't know. It was disgusting. And I have a pretty tough stomach. I rarely get nauseous. That ruined my weekend. Or if you ever have to go up against baseball players in a pumpkin pie eating contest, do it well. I came in second against baseball players, so I appreciate that. And if you ever get to run through a splash pad with a bunch of young kids when you open a new park, do not let a photograph get taken of you, because that shit will live with you forever. So in any event, do fun stuff, have a great time in life, and good luck the rest of the semester, guys. But please take us up if you want to intern. We're not that far of a drive. And if you have any questions, if we can be of any assistance, please don't ever hesitate. Thank you, guys.